Is there anyone who hasn't used Adobe Express before? Please raise your hand if you haven't. So we are well equipped. This is fantastic. The web design that is most accessible, even to those who are not interested in majoring in digital communication, really is Adobe Express. So it's wonderful that y'all already have that foundation. A lot of this will be a review for many of you then. First, let me introduce myself. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Ryan McPherson. I'm an associate professor of practice here at UTSA. I specialize in a number of things. Let me pull up my bio here and show you the courses that I teach. Many of you are about to graduate because you're in the capstone course. So I may not be able to work with you, but if you are in the market for another course, this is a list of the courses that I teach. I love teaching. My emphasis that I studied was organizational development and instructional communication. The contents of this website, which you will have at your disposal later, I'll be sure to share the link, is focused on the digital toolbox for both working together in teams and specifically building your project in Adobe Express. So even if you're familiar with Adobe Express, and maybe you've built a website before, hopefully there'll be something in this presentation for you too. And I'll be sure to pause for questions. So please be thinking of questions, especially those of you who have more experience with website design, who maybe have used some more of the pro tools as well. So the first thing you already know a lot about, so I'm not spending as much time, is the Adobe Creative Cloud. Then we're going to go to Word and Google Docs, Slack and GroupMe and Zoom, and of course, Chat GPT, which I'm hoping will be new for many of you because that is a cutting edge technology that I'm really excited about personally. So first off, Creative Cloud is the most accessible of all of the Adobe tools in the Adobe Creative Cloud. It's Adobe Express, and many of you probably have used this in other classes. If you've taken any of my classes, you've definitely used this tool to create web pages. But hopefully today will help you to get a little bit more familiar with web design principles as well. So in just a few short tutorials, if you have no design experience whatsoever, you can find your way to creating high quality Adobe Express web pages that you can collaborate with your group. So if you design an Adobe Express page individually, the collaboration button is going to be something that we will cover that'll be a lot of fun. What else can you do in the Creative Cloud? We've got photography, graphic design, social media, UX, UI, all sorts of things. I also have this website here that I created with Adobe Express when I first learned about it, back when it was called Adobe Spark. Back in the day before they actually updated it to Adobe Express. And this website, which again will be linked in this presentation, has a bunch of quick tutorials and deep dive resources for those of you who are more digitally literate. So if you're interested in getting involved in learning some of the ins and outs of web tools beyond Adobe Express, this is a nice quick start guide for you. I linked to some of the most popular tutorial sites on the web and through my own professional development with becoming an Adobe certified campus or an Adobe Creative Cloud campus. We had a fellowship program that I went through, and I was able to take courses from some of the folks who are featured in this link list. Todd Taylor's OER Adobe Creative Cloud text is an excellent resource, especially if you're a digital communication major. It's one you might not have been exposed to. It's a free OER resource. I love it. So we've got all sorts of other quick start resources and videos for you to take a look at. We're not going as deep into this, but I want you to know the other tools that are out there, especially Adobe Portfolio. Whenever you graduate, it's very important that you go to adobe.graduation.com or just Google Adobe graduation, and you can transfer everything you've worked on in your collegiate career, in your university career, into your professional portfolio. So if you build something in Adobe Portfolio, if you build something in Adobe Express, if you build something that you have stored in the cloud, it's really important to make sure that whenever you graduate, you go to that website and you're able to transfer those assets over. And since y'all are close to graduation, I assume if you're in a capstone course, then you probably want to start thinking about that migration process now so that you're ready whenever it's time. So all these tools are super useful. The most accessible of these tools are Adobe Rush and, of course, Adobe Express. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And of course, the first step is to download and install. I included some install links. Most of you already have many of these. Do me a favor, raise your hand if you've ever used Slack. Nobody. Oh, wait, there's some people. Okay, good. There was a delay. So I assume everyone's, anyone not used, raise your hand if you haven't used GroupMe. Okay, so you're familiar with tools like Slack and GroupMe. You're familiar with tools like Zoom, obviously. These are the collaboration tools that you would use in your digital toolbox. It's important to first install and download them and make sure you have your UTSA Adobe account. Some of you, especially if you're a digital communication major, you might already have your own personal account. There are advantages to using the enterprise account that you can use now, that whenever you graduate, you'll have those items in your portfolio that you can translate, just like we were talking about before. Okay, so in narrowing our focus, we're talking specifically about how we talk about text, our transcripts, images or graphics, and video and audio. And the first question is, are you working with a text or transcript? So obviously, there are lots of tools y'all are already familiar with. Microsoft Word, I think, is one of the best for accessibility. It has a really good accessibility checker. Whenever we're doing instructional design, that's one of our best tools. If you're trying to create for an audience that is diverse and you want to use universal design principles, it's pretty good. Google Docs doesn't have quite as good accessibility checking, but as you know, it's very good for collaborative engagement activities. And of course, AI and Chat GPT. This is a game-changing tool. It's an artificial intelligence tool. Right now, we're in Chat GPT 3. This can be used for feedback in writing, generating new ideas, brainstorming, solving problems, generating practice questions, summarizing, paraphrasing, assigning a point of view. For example, I want you to take the point of view of my audience and give me advice on this piece. You can code, create, analyze, list, all sorts of wonderful things. And I'm really excited about this technology because it's the first wave of AI, which will have a measurable impact on our job market, on our labor force, and on everything we do as a society, right? Back in the day, whenever we got tractors, there are now less farmers, right? This is just a tool. It's a tool like that. So as you are graduating, as you are entering the workforce, it's really important to be aware of tools like this. If you haven't played with this yet, I highly recommend you sign up for a free account and you go in and you play with it. It's incredibly fun to play with. Obviously, you're not going to copy and paste things into projects, but it's going to cut down on time in ideation. It's could cut down on time for brainstorming. It's going to cut down on all sorts of tasks that are usually more time intensive. So I highly encourage it. And by the way, if you're curious, GPT-4 will be trained on this much more data, and that's probably coming out this year. And right now we're very limited where we enter things into the tool and we get, error messages and it misfires a lot. And sometimes it just straight up lies. GPT-4 will have a much more robust data set. It's this much bigger, literally. And from the early reports, it looks like it can write a book, like a 60,000 word book, which is just an amazing leap forward. So what we're going to see going forward is a hockey stick, right? We have really useful, interesting things happening right now in AI, where we're going to have AI plugged into all the tools we usually use. You're going to have AI extensions in Chrome. I think there's already an extension for Chat GPT in Chrome that you can use in your Google Docs. There's going to be all sorts of wonderful APIs and integrations that actually help you to use this tool to improve your work and to test ideas. So I wanted to share that because I'm excited about it, because I'm still learning a lot about it. And there are good things and there are bad things, just like any new technology. But I encourage you to use and play with it because it's going to be one of those job requirements when y'all graduate. Here is an example case study here where I specifically gave it some text and I asked for feedback, and it gave me some good feedback on how to improve this specific text. It's really fun. Please play with it if you have not yet. It's fantastic. The next thing I was going to talk about was Adobe Express, but you guys already know about Adobe Express. You know how to launch it. You know how to find that purple button. You know how to go to, create a custom sized graphic if you want to create images. You know how to create custom images as well. So we're going to skip that. And of course, I want to talk about video and audio specifically, and this beginner tools. If you have not yet had a chance to use Adobe Rush, please make sure that you review that, because that's going to really help you to contribute to your video project for this class. If you are a digital communication major, hopefully you've already exposed yourself and really dived into Adobe Premiere Premiere Pro, because Premiere Pro is a more full editing suite than Adobe Rush, than Premiere Rush. So if you're new to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I've not heard of these tools, be sure that you familiarize yourself. And if you haven't played with Audition, I also highly recommend that. That is more for specifically audio and editing audio and doing all sorts of fun things with audio. So this is a list of advantages. Again, you don't need to write this down. I'm going to include this website, and I'll make sure that Dr. B has this website. And then we have Audition, which has these advantages and these specific capabilities. These are principles for design in your web page. Now, obviously, Adobe Express is much more limited than other sites and other tools that you will use. If you've taken some courses here at UTSA about web design, you know how limited it is. But for our purposes, because we're not all digital communication majors, it's the perfect tool for creating a project like this that you can collaborate on and have everybody contribute to. So the first principle is always aim for clarity and make sure that you plan the placement of items and assets using a wireframe design. Another thing to consider here is, are you going to have an F-shaped text layout or a Z-shaped layout? Now, Adobe Express does a lot of this heavy lifting for you in terms of constraints that it already has. But in Adobe Express, it's important to think about how you want to lay things out before you and your teams lay out your projects. Make sure that you keep your purpose and audience in mind at all times. As you list your purposes, think about which one is the most important for this project. And make sure you have that as your North Star, your guiding light, as you put together and lay out your web pages with your teams. That purpose and that audience you're going to want to come back to. It's an axiom of our discipline. Hopefully, since y'all are about to graduate, you know that audience is at the center of everything we do, that purpose is at the center of everything we do. And you have that already in your mind firm from other projects. Obviously, placing the most important information and your most persuasive information at the top of the page, because many users don't scroll, is incredibly important. Using graphics, images, and videos to keep users engaged. Social proof to build trust and credibility from potential customers, or in this case, external stakeholders. In other words, you're creating and using those videos in part to help build that social proof, so that you can have those partnerships y'all were talking about and external stakeholders supporting the project. Of course, clear and concise language and storytelling strategies, which might include calls to action throughout the page to encourage. I've got a little link here to help with principles of good web design. A reminder to group things in 3. Again, Express is limited. As you can see on this Express page, I am limited in my design choices. And that's one of the good things about it, and that's one of the bad things about it, right? So a reminder to group things in sets of 3 to make sure that you're not overwhelming your audience, to keep it simple and keep the design simple, and think about and really plan how you're going to create the most persuasive message. Other things to consider in the design space, for those of you, again, who are not digital communication majors, it's easier to remember if you remember the acronym: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. This applies to images as well as good design. These are things to consider as you are putting together your site. And of course, this is a tutorial none of you need to watch because you already know how to do that part. And then this is how to embed those YouTube assets. And this is how to publish it, which again, none of you need to watch. Oh, this might be new. Some of you might not have yet collaborated. That little collaborate button at the top, where you can invite people to work with you, is incredibly important. I personally like to work in a Google Doc first before I start collaborating in Adobe Express. I think it saves a lot of time and energy. If you can hop on a Zoom call with your team and talk about the main purpose of the project and really lay out exactly who your audience is and why you're doing what you're doing, and frame exactly what you want to do with the web page before you actually start collaborating in Adobe Express, I think it saves a lot of time, and I highly recommend that. Here's some bonus interviews. I literally just published this one. This is a design thinking and web design interview I just did yesterday with Red Madden. Raise your hand if you know Red. Any y'all taking any classes with Red Madden? 2, 3, 4. All right, cool. So 5. Okay, so some of y'all know Red. You'll get to see her again and see what she has to say about web design, design thinking, and social media. It was a really fun interview to do. This is my other interview that I did that is more of a tutorial with Willie Schaefer. If you're already familiar with Express, which all of you are, you might really appreciate this because it goes into how you can switch back and forth between different Adobe apps. So for example, you have an interview and you're working on that interview, but you want to add some graphics to it. Well, you can pop over to Adobe Express, create some motion graphics, export those, and they're going to work across the app to be able to pull it into Adobe Rush. So you can really up your project and make it much more professional and much more persuasive and influential by using these different Adobe apps in conjunction at the same time. And that's what that tutorial covers. And of course, that's the quick resources guide that I was sharing with y'all later. I've got a community engagement guide. Oh, this is really fun. This is a SEO tool that we use. It's HTML to text, and this actually can be useful in a lot of different ways. The way that I've been using it lately is it's really fun for Chat GPT. So let's say you have a website with a bunch of stuff on it, and you just want to focus on the text, because that's what Chat GPT does, right? It's not like Midjourney. It's not like DALL-E, which are generating images from generative AI. This is text only. So you put the website into this, and it just strips out everything except for the text. So you can copy and paste that text back into Chat GPT to play with it and have fun with it and see how you can improve it. This, of course, is a Glideshow demo. This is another option for web design that I wanted to include. I didn't include it because for the presentation, because I didn't want it to be too distracting for this particular style and format of presentation. It's very easy to use the Glideshow option whenever you go under Photos. And remember, in the Glideshow option in Adobe Express, if you haven't played with it before or used it before, you're going to have these floating boxes, which are going to allow you to have set up your headers, your quotes, and your numbered lists. And this is a much more visually modern and visually engaging way to design your websites for those external audiences. So instead of making it look simple like this, it's really fun to throw in these kinds of design elements because they just work better, right? And of course, we've got some other examples here of how you can embed YouTube videos into that Glideshow the same way. And that is what I had for you today, but I'm really excited to share anything else y'all have questions on. Would I recommend using Photoshop? Absolutely. And I would also say that Photoshop is not something you should be intimidated by, because if you just know a few little things in Photoshop, you can do a lot of really fun things. And there are binaural, there's AI plugins in Photoshop that can help you do things that it used to take designers hours to do. So if you're not into graphic design, if you're not into the digital communication side, if you're not into Adobe tools, please use Photoshop to improve those images. And you can send things back and forth. If you watch that video tutorial that I have at the bottom of the page with Willie Schaefer, our Adobe specialist here at UTSA, you can send things back and forth between Photoshop. So let's say, for example, in Adobe Express, you remove background from an image and you want this image to be like your title card or something. You can remove that background. You're like, wait, this isn't quite right. This doesn't look as good and professional as I want it to. You can pop that over into Photoshop, do a better job of fine-tuning that image and erasing things and zooming in. And then you can take that same image, put it back in Express, or take it over to Adobe Rush or whatever your project demands.
I greatly appreciate you speaking to the class. I know, if anything, for me, it makes me feel much better. And like I said, I like to make sure that there's a level playing field and everyone has an equivalent base of knowledge. So this is great. And I just want to thank you so much for speaking with us. So thank you, Ryan.